Hi, hello everybody. Good to see you, or if you're listening on a podcast later, good to be listened to you by you. Where am I going with this? I don't know. So we're on our eighth session today. We're on the eighth session of the Thrive series, and today we're on identity, and we're going to be exploring identity from the perspective of an adoptee, and a very special adoptee, if I may say that.
Thank you, Simon.
My partner in Thrive, my partner in thriving, Daniela Mannucci.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hi. So, identity. Now, this is one of those subjects. Who are we? Who are we? I mean, I guess non-adopted people sometimes think about that too, and it can become a rabbit hole for them as well. But our rabbit hole perhaps is a little bit darker. So, Daniela, what's the thing? What's your take on this identity thing from an adoptee perspective?
It's funny because I no longer see it as an identity from being an adoptee, but an identity of all of my experiences that have brought me to an understanding that I am made up of many experiences, some not so nice, some nicer, traumatic events, difficulties, beauty, joy, beliefs that I've taken on through my wounding, and the conclusions, the beliefs, the attitudes, the perceptions of who I am because of those events, experiences, woundings, traumas. And I came to a point where as I undid them, as I unwound, like a spool, you unwind a spool of thread, I became fluid, and I realized, oh, actually, that's not who I am. Like, I don't have to define myself as someone who's been relinquished and then adopted into a highly dysfunctional, violent family. That's not who I am. And, this goes back to what you said last week, is like, we're a soul, like we're the diamond. So I just want to state something, because I feel it's really important, is like, when we have trauma and painful experiences and we haven't been able to walk through them, because what happens is they get stuck in our system, and then we become very rigid. Like, the trauma is now in our nervous system, and we're highly sensitive and highly on alert, and it's like that becomes who we are. But when we let go of that and we move through the painful experiences, and we learn that we can do that because that's the only way through, then we come to the other side of, oh, I'm actually more fluid. I am not that feeling. I'm not that pain. I'm not that hyper-vigilance. I'm actually fluid, and I just keep unwinding and unwinding all of this stuff to uncover, like you were saying before, the Michelangelo, the diamond. And I see it as the uncovering and the moving through experience of painful events and learning from them and learning who I am, going back to resilience, right? Because when you're fluid and you say, okay, I really want to move through the belief that I'm a really unworthy or not good person because there's something wrong with me. Otherwise, my birth mother wouldn't have left me. You know, when I'm really ready to face that, then I move through it and I become more fluid, and I'm not stuck in this rigid pattern of I'm bad, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough.
So I've never.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, I'm going to try and repeat it back to you with a metaphor. There's something that came to my mind, right? So, given you're Italian by birth,
Yes.
I was thinking of a Riva speedboat on what did they call it?
Lago Maggiore.
Lago Maggiore, yeah, right.
Lago
So
di Como.
sorry.
Or Lago di Como.
Okay, I can't say that.
Lake Como. Lake Como.
Okay, Lake Como. So I'm imagining a Riva, you know, this classic Riva wooden speedboat of the golden ages, a beautiful piece of engineering, and I'm seeing that as who we are. Now, this speedboat has been through a lot. It's not been looked after like a speedboat should be. It's been through some really stormy weather when it should have been tucked away inside and cosseted in a little one of those covered garages, you know, the mooring bits where they drive into, like a garage for a speedboat, but actually in the water. So it's been through some really choppy stuff that it was never designed for. And it's also been left and it's been unkempt, and you've got all these barnacles on the speedboat, which are the metaphor for another metaphor for the neglect and the and the abuse that this speedboat has been through, and because it's not been so. First off, the boat isn't what it's been through.
Right.
Yeah? The boat isn't what it's been through. So we aren't our experiences. And the next thing is that, you know, we aren't our neglect. We aren't those barnacles. We're still the speedboat. But if we think, you know, whilst we see ourselves as, you know, we're this speedboat that's had this terrible life on Lago Maggiore when it should never have been taken out in that rough weather. And once it's got all these barnacles on it, it's kind of like it's really slow and it's tired and it moves through. It doesn't perform how it should do in life. But that's how we see ourselves. But underneath all the experience that this speedboat, this lovely piece of Italian engineering has been through and design has been through, and underneath all the barnacles of the abuse that I've come to, it is still underneath it all this beautiful, bellissimo. What's the Italian word for speedboat?
È una barca, un motoscafo.
Motoscafo. Yeah, it's still this beautiful motoscafo. So that's the metaphor that came to mind.
Yeah, great. Exactly. And because of the barnacles, that's actually great, because when my ex-partner, we had a boat. I mean, every year we had to send it in to have it cleaned, because obviously that's what gets attached to it, right? And obviously it slows us down. We're not fluid in the water. So the barnacles that we feel, because we feel so deeply, that gives us the sense of who we are, and that becomes our self-image. Like Jung talked about
Speedboats?
portraits, like in a gallery, in like a museum, like in a photo gallery or painting gallery, right? And each portrait represented a part of ourselves that we had taken on at a certain time. And we've got lots of selves, lots of energy patterns within us that we believe that we are. Like, I'm relinquished, I've been relinquished, and I've created a portrait around that and a self-image. And so I may see myself as a victimized, helpless, because that's what I experienced when my mother, any mother, leaves a child in an orphanage or just relinquishes them. And that self-image, that feeling is still within us and is part of, it's like this rigid, let's just say it's this rigid portrait that remains there. It's this feeling and this experience that we have, and it remains there. And then we get abused in our adoptive family. We get neglected in our adoptive family, and that creates another self-image, another portrait. And we believe, because we feel that, because that experience of neglect, because we haven't moved through it, is like a barnacle on the bottom of the speedboat. And it becomes rigid and it stays there and it slows us down. And we believe that's us also. And then maybe we're physically abused or sexually abused. And that's another portrait and another feeling sense of who we are. That's another self-image. Now, if you've got all this stuff going on, you could have 20, 30, 40 portraits inside of you, all these barnacles on your speedboat of who you are at your core. Now the work is to reintegrate all that and learn from it. Okay. Learn from it and let it go.
Can I take your metaphor on a bit or back a bit?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So imagine, the painter's got a canvas. He puts the canvas on the frame that he's going to paint on, and there's a first portrait goes on. So it's the relinquished child,
right?
Relinquished baby portrait. Then there's the abused child portrait. Then there's the poor student,
right, who doesn't do well in school. Yeah, exactly.
Then there's the unemployed no-mark portrait, because they can't get a job because they've got the qualification. So, but these portraits are added on.
Right, they're all connected. They're
layered on top of one another.
Mm-hmm.
They're layered on top of one another. So I'm just taking your portrait, your metaphor, but I'm trying it a different way just to simplify it.
Yeah.
And the more paint that goes on the canvas, the more confused we become.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly.
And so the way through all this is with paint remover. And we're going to remove the paint one layer at a time to reveal the blank canvas. And
Perfect. I'm going to stop you there. So
Cool.
the removal is the reintegration of, I'm going to be with this. I'm going to feel this and allow. And so, you see, when the paint dries, it gets crusty, right? Like the barnacles, they become hard and solid and rigid. That's what paint becomes like.
Especially if you're using oil paint.
Yeah, exactly. Acrylics, oils, right. So how do I loosen that and allow it to become fluid so it comes off easily? And then the next color underneath that is revealed. It's like the revealing of oneself, right? Because you keep taking off. You know, I'm taking off the belief of I can't get a job. I don't do well. You know, I can't make money like my friends make because, you know, underneath, like 3 layers down, I've got a belief and I've got a persona. I have a self-image that I'm just not good enough. Nobody would want to hire me. That may be one of the beliefs. So we keep loosening and we reintegrate them in. We walk through them like you would with, you dilute it. Is that the right word for it? Yeah. Yeah. So
To see through.
Right. And so you're walking through the experience of, this is the belief I hold. Okay. Can I really look at this and be with it and let it go and undress in the process that I use? It's an undressing and unveiling. You take that belief off, literally. And then you burn it.
So you talked about fluidity, and that's what got me thinking about the speedboat. So, and if we take the cleaning fluid, the cleaning fluid that we use to paint thinners, we call them in the UK.
Right, paint thinners, right.
We use that, usually we use that on our brushes.
Right.
Yeah, but this time we're going to take the paint thinner, and that's going to make the belief a little looser, a little thinner, and easier.
Fluid.
And fluid and easier to see through.
Right.
So it's a seeing thing, not a doing thing.
Yeah, and a re-experiencing so that you can re-experience yourself as not as that hardened, but you allow that to be let go of because it's no longer traumatic. It no longer needs to be held in this rigid state of being. Like when paint gets hardened and crust, right? That crust, it's like that gets walked through and worked through, and the release of the pain, that's what I wanted to get through. It's like the release process of that self-image that's so hardened into us and painful to carry around.
Yeah. I had a fantastic insight, I think, last week. Somebody was talking about we are product of our environments, right?
Mm.
If we're a product of the environment, that's getting who we are confused with this very confused painting.
Well, that's part of it.
But the confusion, we've got a lot of people out there saying, I'm a product of my environment. Well,
right.
That means that's going to be really, that's a really misleading and untrue true belief, because just to use the logic on it, right? So if we are a product of our environment, then that means that we were nothing when we came into that environment. So you're going to look at a baby, right? A newborn baby, and say, you are nothing. Do you get, I mean, you wouldn't, babies are everything, aren't they?
They're everything and nothing, because the nothingness is everything if you want to go there, right? It's like
Well, they're the perfection.
Spirit. Yeah.
The perfection. They're the blank canvas.
Right. And that's not a contradiction of what we were just saying. That's part of, because if I'm living in an abusive environment, I'm taking on the persona, I'm taking on the self-image of a victim or an abuser, like the bully or the victim, right? I'm going to either swing one way or I'm going to swing the other, but I'm still going to be a product, however which way my being deals with it, whether it's easier to fight back and become a bully and become just like the product people that I'm living with, or I'm going to become a victim. It's the same thing.
So I wanted to go back to that point that you said about not good enough. So I've done a lot of my consciousness work. Well, pretty much all. No, that's it. Apart from working with you, I haven't done any consciousness work with other adoptees.
Mm.
Right? I've done it with people that weren't adopted, and the constant thread amongst those people is they don't feel good enough either.
Right.
We've got a better reason. We've got a more compelling reason to think that we're not good enough because we were given away, right? I was given away, that kind of anger sort of stuff. We've got a really compelling reason. They haven't. So, I'm thinking like it could be, it's like a victim competition, isn't it? How dare, you don't
How
think
deep is your wound?
well, what about me? It's just, you think you've got problems?
Right. I see that every day. Right. People are in competition, and that's what happens when you don't own the pain and you want to project it and make other people responsible. And this is it. Hopefully we'll get to this in this series about projecting pain instead of embracing it and allowing the pain to release. Because when it gets stuck on the canvas in that hardened state, it's like we continually make more self-images out of that, because then we become hardened and we become hypercritical. We become, what is that called? When you become cynical.
Have you been listening to the voice in my head?
Rageful. Pardon?
Have you been listening to the voice in my head? That's what it says.
Right. But that's part of the dry paint. That's part of the barnacles on the speedboat. I mean, these are two really important metaphors. Being cynical is just pain that's been hardened. Any cynic, any person that is a naysayer, or what's the other one? You're cynical and you're, what is that? You've got that kind of humor that's like really dry. You're like sarcastic, and do you know what I mean? Like that kind of, you approach things in that way, and that's just hardened pain. And when you take that person and you start undressing the wounds, and they're really willing to step into the diamond, the speedboat, then they become soft and fluid and loving. That's our natural state.
So what we're doing, viewers and listeners, is we're pointing you to the perfection of who you are, the unconditioned soul, the blank canvas, not the layers of manky, horrible, dried oil that sat on the canvas, but the purity of the perfection of what's underneath it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
we're labouring the point a little bit just to try and make sure it lands.
Right, right, right. Because there are so many pieces to this, but it all comes down to the same thing. It's how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself, how you hear. It's like everything you believe about yourself. Um, that those feelings that are still knotted up inside, that's just dry oil on a canvas that needs to be diluted. The barnacles need to be cut off.
Yeah. Or seen through. And that's what we're doing. There's nothing to do other
Oh,
than what we're doing now.
yeah. And the power as you release that comes back into you is so amazing. The feeling of freedom, the joy, the sense of lightness. It's like I've never encountered someone that's gone through that whole unwinding process, that dilution process, and said, oh my God, if I could, I'd do it all over again to feel the freedom that I'm feeling now. And it's so beautiful. It really, sometimes it brings me to tears, because that's the resilience, that's like the nature of who we are. It's that beauty of like, oh my God, like look, like, oh my God, I feel amazing, I'm free.
And
i
free.
didn't I didn't know that when I was stuck for so long,
When you were, I'm going to keep on with my metaphor, right? Okay, because this is
Okay.
right. Well, I think it's funny. I hope you think it's funny, Daniela, and listeners and viewers. So when you said power, I thought you were going to say power washing. When you get the jet wash and
Right,
you blow
right.
the barnacles,
Blow them off.
you're going to
Yeah.
blow the barnacles. So this is what we're doing right now. We're doing this right now with you. Okay, we're not instructing you to go out to your garage, get out your Karcher or your Ketcher, whatever you call it, and turn the jet wash on yourself. We're not suggesting for that for a minute. We're using this as a metaphor to say this is what we are doing with you now. Okay, we are blowing the barnacles off with a Karcher jet washer, and it's just to be clear, other jet washers are available.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
when do you see?
power. I just want to say this because people think they shy away from power, but true power, spirit power, is beauty, grace, strength, courage. It's just like being in your light. There's no harm. There's no overpowering or controlling or beheading anyone. We're talking about spirit power. It's like the beauty and the grace. It's just an emanation. And
And
if
it's,
that's not powerful, right?
so I was interrupting you there, Daniela.
That's okay. Sorry, I just got so excited. I just had to put that
Please
out there.
do.
Because many people shy away. They don't want to have anything to do with power because they saw power as destructive. We grew up with destructive people that use power to control us and damage.
And this power that you're talking about here is very creative, and it leads us to create really strange metaphors. Who'd have
Right.
thought we would? I've never had that metaphor, that speedback metaphor. That's a new one. I've never heard the portrait one before. That's another new one, and I've definitely never come up with the idea of jet washing ourselves to reveal our spirit. That's a new one. So but that's because we're in that space. We're in that space where we're just the space of consciousness where we're just coming up with these creative ideas. It's by being in the space. And so when do you feel when do you touch your when do you touch your soul? When do you experience your
when I'm literally in the moment and I just allow myself to be. And I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling and I don't judge it. So I'm not creating hardened oil paint on my canvas. I'm just, and sometimes it's not easy. And I'm still removing layers. We're always walking through life, engaging in things. And instead of being resistant to them, I move through them, like dancing through them, moving through them as fluidly as I can. Sometimes I get stuck. I have to take more breaths and walk through it and hold myself. There are moments where I take a baby doll and I hold my doll as that part of myself that knows what that pain is like. And I breathe with her and I open to love and I open to my own compassion for what I'm feeling. And that's the like, there's no judgment, there's no resistance. It may take me a few hours, it may take me a day, but it's like then the next piece comes off and then I re-engage in the next whatever shows up. And I keep moving through it without judgment or resistance.
Yeah. So you're not judging. You're not judging the oil painting.
No, that's where I used to get stuck. Because every difficulty that came up, I believe that was a definition of my unworthiness and my not good enough. Because that's where I would go with it until I undressed it and I unwound it so much. And then I realized, oh my gosh, like, look at what I've been doing to myself. That's not who I am. But I couldn't have known unless I walked through my own process. It's not until you get to the other side of the tunnel, out into the light, then you say, oh, I see. All of the tunnel was the way it was because of the way I was resisting, rejecting, avoiding, and judging, which compounded a millionfold all the pain that I was feeling. But you're not going to know that until you really breathe through it and engage with whatever's showing up with as much love and openness and like wanting to embrace it and learn from it and expand, because the expansion is the undressing after you've taken off that layer and you've revealed more of the David, or taking away, getting down to the blank canvas. I've just diluted this. The speedboat is going fast now because all the barnacles have been removed. Like all these metaphors, they're perfect.
Because I used to worry about worrying. So that's how my judging, that's what anxiety is, isn't it? It's worrying about worrying.
Yeah.
That's how I used to judge my feelings. I still do sometimes, but the newer one that's come to me is overthinking.
Mm.
Yeah, worrying about worrying, overthinking. Like worrying about overthinking.
That could really wind us up.
Overthinking.
Right. These are just those mental habits. Yeah.
Then you've got overthinking about overthinking about overthinking.
Right, because the ego believes that it can think its way out, but it's not. It cannot. An observer has to come in.
Mine can.
You can. Can you undress it? Can you unwind it?
No, it can't.
Right.
We've not done enough laughing today. Yeah. See, right. So now I'm overthinking seriousness. I'm judging my seriousness. I just did it just then.
It's okay. It's okay. We're doing our best to convey really important messages so that people realize that they no longer have to suffer. And sometimes we get caught in that, like, thinking to like to do the best that we can. And I think we've given what we can, for this session.
Yeah.
So be light on yourself. Yeah.
Be light on yourself. Yeah. Be kind on yourself. And be kind on yourself even if you're being really nasty to yourself. Yeah. Don't get upset about being upset. Don't do what Simon does. Worry about worrying, overthink about overthinking. Like we're all doing the best that we possibly can in any moment. So let's give ourselves a break.
Yeah. And when we see that we're judging, just say, okay, I'm judging. I can let go of this, because judging really narrows your possibilities to true understanding and acceptance.
Let me be the judge of that, Daniela. Wow. Super.
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
The other thing that just popped into my head, there's a kid's cartoon, and it had somebody, one of the characters was Barnacle Bill.
Oh no, really?
So
that's
I
awesome.
don't know whether Barnacle Bill knew the difference between, a Reaver speedboat and one that's been through the wars. Yeah. Thanks, Daniela.
Thank you, Simon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Barnacle Daniela from now on.
Yeah, and Barnacle Simon.
Well, Barnacle Ben. I can be Barnacle Ben.
You can. Yeah.
Barnacle Ben. See you all there soon. Thanks a lot.
See you. Bye.